Welcome, everybody, to episode 21 of the T-Force LCS Rundown. This is Mott Ganorum, joined this week by Greg Credible Mushroom Russo.
Hello.
And Dan Cifadrecos.
Hey, everybody.
We are short-handed this week with Optimus Tom and Mitch being out, which sucks because even though Week 10 was a pretty slow week overall in the LCS, we do have a Super Week.
Oh my God, you got it.
I love that. That's
awesome.
Oh
I was ready for that. We got the hip-hop air horns coming. We've got Super Week
Remix
coming up. That's the new official Super Week introduction horn. I'm super pumped. So this week we are live shortly after 9 p.m. on Twitch TV/T-Force Podcast. Next week, however, for Super Week, for pre-playoffs, for Worlds Speculation Craft, we will be hopefully doing, unconfirmed as of now, but hopefully doing a super long Super Week episode. I am literally going to hit that every time that we say Super Week, so I'm pretty pumped for that.
Except for that one time you just said it.
Damn it. Fuck, there it goes. All right, no more air horns. But we will be going live an hour earlier, starting at 8 p.m., so that each region, North America and Europe, can get its due time. Speaking of due time, let's waste no further time, and let's move straight into our discussion for this week. We're going to go ahead and table the LCS news for this week. Because it's primarily North American news, so we'll tackle that in the North American section of our discussion. So let's hop right into Europe. I think probably the best kickoff point for us is going to be talking about the fight for the top of the bracket between Fnatic and Alliance. Alliance taking victory over Fnatic and securing itself an 18-6 two-game lead over Fnatic going into our Super Week. So what did you guys think about this game overall?
It was everything that I hoped for. I'll say that, except for Fnatic losing.
It was. I was surprised at how balanced the game was. It's really what we expected coming out from both teams. Neither team was particularly ahead for the majority of the game. I'd say that Alliance made better decisions in terms of objective control and how they played the game. But it was definitely at no point a stomp, which is really what I was excited about. I really didn't want this to come in and just be a one-sided stomp. I wanted this to be a good back-and-forth game of League of Legends, and it really was.
Well, I mean, the beginning of the game was really, and I would even say the majority of it, the 3/4 of that game was a real nail-biter. It was a lot of really light siege trades just going back and forth. They would slap each other a little bit. No one would die, and then they would both respectively turn away. And then anytime a team did make a move for an objective or a tower dragon, basically, the other team would come in and respond immediately with equal to, or in some cases greater, objective strength. So I think we saw both Alliance and Fnatic with a ton of respect for their opposing team, and just overall really both of them afraid to make a mistake. To Fnatic's unfortunate demise, it seemed a lot of their moves were a little less calculated. They weren't willing to take as many risks, and they would more happily back off but lose a lot to that problem. An example of that we saw was they backed off of a Baron after Cyanide got hit out. Cyanide chose not to hop in onto one particular fight when Tabs was pretty far back. Those are just a couple of instances. And Cyanide did seem to have, I think, what maybe the casters would have focused on, and what I think most viewers would focus on, is probably the most mistakes as could compare. But really, this was a very high skill match. Mistakes in the context of the greater LCS, there were barely any in this case. It was just highly calculated plays from both sides.
Yeah, it was definitely the map movement that I really like to see from professional teams, especially ones outside of Korea, because it's not something that we saw really up until this season was efficient map movement, and it's become as teams have been moving and the leagues have been becoming more and more competitive, we see a lot better map movement. And so watching a game like this where they're both very old teams. A lot of them still have their core members. It's nice to see them adapt to this new meta and to play on a competitive level, on like a truly, I would say, globally competitive level.
I mean, I really wasn't expecting anything less from these two teams in this matchup, and I think the onus was a little bit more on Fnatic to perform in this scenario, only because Alliance was going to kind of have sort of a sweep with the Copenhagen Wolves in their next game. Or actually, how did those fall in terms of order? Yeah, that was both teams' first game of the week. So Alliance had kind of an easy game against Copenhagen Wolves, assumedly, or presumably, whatever that word is, we'll go with it. And they did. They were able to pick up that win. And Fnatic had a matchup against Millennium, which with Millennium's most recent success, I think made it more of a question mark as to whether or not that they would be able to pull. And sure, they maybe wouldn't have been able to fully push forward and actually, be able to either tie or overtake, but it would have closed the gap just a little bit. And unfortunately for Fnatic, they are still 2 games down.
Yeah, I think Fnatic has a chance to contest for first, and it's really based. I mean, both teams definitely are still definitely in the running for first. I know that Alliance can get no lower than second at this point. And I know that, and we'll talk about it more in detail, but both of the teams' Super Week schedules look pretty, definitely not easy. I mean, obviously they're playing a lot of games, but they definitely don't they don't play each other in Super Week. So, I mean, there's not a whole ton of points of contention. I think they both play Gambit, which should be, relatively free.
Which sucks.
Which sucks. I mean, but if we're talking about Gambit, I mean, Gambit's dead.
Yeah.
Gambit died. Gambit is dead. Whatever team this is not Gambit. This is not the Russian team that we know and love. This is not the people that came and showed up in every major tournament. These aren't the people that competed with Koreans when they were on the top of their game.
Right.
This is I don't know what this is, but it's not Gambit. It is not the game of gaming I know. And the most we can hope out of this is that this will be a lesson to the League of Legends community about organization and team structure. I think that's the most we're going to get out of them at this point.
I wish Optimus Tom was here because I feel like out of all of us, he would be the most equipped to answer this question. But I'll go ahead and ask it anyway. How many team members have to continue on to the regular roster for the team to still count as an LCS team? So let me throw this at you. Let's say Gambit goes out and after getting punched into relegations, goes and does a clean house. They go in, they pick up some new members, maybe retain 1 or 2 of the original set, and then either go into relegation with a essentially brand new team, because that's kind of what they need, or go into the Challenger Series as functionally a brand new team. So to phrase the question another way, is Gambit the team as an LCS entity? Is that tied into the team name, or is it tied into the individual players?
Individual players, without a doubt. I mean, this isn't. The thing is unlike American football or soccer, there's no patriotism involved with picking a team. Like maybe if you're Russian, you would support Gambit just because they're the team that comes from your home country. But me personally, like, I don't care. Like my favorite team is probably one of the Samsung teams right now, probably Blue. I don't care that they're Korean. They're good. I like the way that they play League of Legends, and the fact that they're Korean is irrelevant. Whereas, if I were to say I'm a Steelers fan, it might be because I'm from Pittsburgh. It might be because, my parents were Steelers fan, something like that. But we just don't see that as much in League of Legends. So I think most of the attachment is going to be the players and players' personalities. Like, I don't care about CLG. Like, I love CLG. I'm a CLG fan, but as an organization, who cares? I mean, it's 90% Double Lift. Like, Double Lift is the face of CLG, and I think that's what most of the fans are going for.
Now, that said, I think a little bit more attachment to the team would not necessarily be a bad thing, sort of like the dynamic you have going on in college basketball.
No, I don't think it's a bad thing. I just don't think it's there. Is what I'm saying. Like, I just don't think it exists currently within the scene.
I think it needs to be. I think the healthiest thing for the LCS right now in terms of viewership and attention rate is for people to start to get really loyal to teams. And there's an episode we're going to do in the off season where we talk about, or maybe it's just me talking by myself at you guys, about my idyllic, like, localized based challenger scene where it's like Boston LCS, Dallas LCS. Regardless, I think you need that kind of local spirit and local flair to really be a success. And I think us as people who live in North America looking into the European scene and trying to find that alliance doesn't really work as well. But I think more for the alliance players, or I keep saying alliance, more for the European players, when they're playing in their home country, that's like a huge boon for them. That's crazy. People love it. They draw a lot off of that. We saw that a lot in London.
Remember the All-Star game? The immense cheers for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Great.
That's awesome, but we don't have that over here in North America. What you were saying earlier, Dan, though, where you don't particularly, I don't want to say care, but you don't feel that like allegiance to a certain team in North America just because they're a North American team. I want to put a very small pin into that, and we're going to bring that up towards the later parts of the episode when we talk about LMQ. But let's kind of tail off the discussion here on Europe. Not much else happened. There's kind of some shifting in terms of, like, SK kind of had a really great game against Rock Hat, and Super Hot Crew came out with 2 really nice wins and, you know, fluffed up my LCS fantasy team. But, I mean, overall, I think on paper, you could have kind of planned out this week and just
I think
guessed it, more or less.
If you want to summarize EU, it's Alliance and Fnatic, pretty much snowballing games and winning. You know, Super Hot Crew might be fighting with Millennium, and then the rest is just a dog fight. I mean, it's just chaos. Right. There's no predicting who's going to come out on top. So if you're a fan of those teams, like, go back and watch those games for sure. Some of them are super one-sided, but they're like, it is anybody's game. But if you really just want to see who's going to be the best and who's going to be on top, you just look at the standings. I mean, they 100% show it. You know who's going to win. You know at least 2 of the 3 teams that are going to come out, and we talked about that last week. So I personally, EU is not as exciting for me because the top of the standings is so clear-cut.
Yep. So coming up next, we're going to kind of blitz through the North American scene. A little bit more to talk about, but I do want to move on to talking about Super Week and leaving hopefully the last half hour to 25 minutes to that discussion entirely, because I think there's going to be some things to mention at least. So this week we had our kind of one big item of LCS news, plenty of drama, loved it. TSM replaces Glebe with Lustboy. Big news. Lustboy was...
I'm sorry, Lustboy or... Lustboy! Lustboy!
See,
oh my God.
This is where
I love Korean chants, man. StarCraft one.
Why don't we have
hype
that?
video of all time? I don't know, man. All we have is ward cheering and TSM cheering. We need to be more
and
original
balls.
in our cheers.
Balls.
Balls
Balls.
deep. Did you hear the guy say balls deep? Just scream it. That was my favorite moment of the week by far.
Man, and they definitely have some like audio modification there where they're playing down the crowd at some points. I'd love to hear what they're like. I'd love to go to a game live.
Yeah, and
that
I think
sounds awesome.
I think that's a good choice by them too, though, because I think the constant ward cheering and the constant like random PSM chants are pretty distracting for casters and for like me as a viewer. I don't like. It's nice to know that it's happening, and it's good to be like to incorporate me into that experience. Like I like that, but I don't want to be surrounded by that the whole time. Like I'm watching this in my home. You know, mostly because I can't afford to go there. But if I was in California and I could afford to go there and I was watching it from home, it would be because I don't want to deal with that many people.
Yeah.
I disagree. I feel like
awesome.
it's an enhancement.
I think it exactly. I agree, Greg.
It shows
it's awesome.
To bring in a professional wrestling term, it's called a hot crowd, and it really helps you get into the game. When people are cheering for wards and like cheering for tricky CS, I would like to see them cheer for more of those things. Show an appreciation for the fundamentals, the vision control, and that kind of stuff. I think that's a signal of a growing appreciation for the fine points of the game. And the more the crowd is into it, the more the crowd is cheering, the more the crowd is chanting, the more they're getting into it like that. I think it's a better experience for everybody. It can come all the way around in some cases and be a bit of a distraction, but I think for the most part, it hasn't been till now. I think we could go quite a bit more into the rowdy crowd area before we even get close to that.
I'm just saying that the live broadcast does not need to include that 100% of the time. I think it's good. I agree. I like the live crowd. I like the hot crowd. It's awesome. I don't want it to be full volume 100% of the time. So I'm glad that they're toning it down and they're cutting it when they do cut it.
Yeah. Somebody in Twitch chat, go do some research by the time we talk next week and find out when did this ward cheering thing start? Because I think it's the dumbest shit ever. It had to have been one really boring game where there were a billion wards placed, and that's all the action that was happening. And I almost want to say...
I'm pretty sure it was last season. I think it was season 3. Almost 100% sure.
It's got to be back there. It would be easy. Just keep hopping back games until you don't hear it, and then step your way back up. Back onto the original topic of Lust Boy. Very, very good friends with Loco Doco, brought in to replace Glebe. We'll get into his performance this week, but just as a little bit of further background, he has been on Zubu Blaze in Korea, as well as CJ Blaze. Most recent...
same team.
Yeah. Oh, was it the same team? See, I don't know Korean.
Yeah, they changed. They changed sponsors. It's. I mean, a few roster changes here and there, but CJ they changed sponsors to Azubu.
Yeah.
So it was formerly CJ Blaze. It's now Azubu Blaze, and now it's. I think it's. Is it still Azubu Blaze? I don't even remember. I don't remember what it is currently, but yeah, it's the same team.
Yeah. Their most recent tournament that they were in, and this is all being pulled off of Gamepedia for lol.gamepedia.com. Was the Hot 6IX, and forgive me for not knowing these tournaments, but Spring 2014 Championship where they placed 4th. So he comes over, he joins TSM. We actually saw not necessarily plays and a team comp style that supports a support and makes the support kind of the focus in the role. But we saw 2 very convincing TSM wins over Evil Geniuses and, more importantly, CLG.
I think right now the support meta is not very flashy. It's just I don't think we can fully judge how well he did this week based on what he played, because I mean he didn't get to play Thresh, he didn't get to play Blitzcrank. Not that he would have picked Blitzcrank. He didn't get to play Alistair. There's like the meta isn't really full of flashy supports. I mean, the flashy support we're going to see is going to be Braum or Thresh. And Thresh was taken away from him against EG, and against CLG. I mean, he just didn't pick it because it just wasn't the right choice into Morgana. So it's not the most exciting display of Let's Play. I just don't think we can make a full judgment on how well he's going to fit into the team from this week.
No, but the one kind of... So TSM is a team right now. They're in, second place? Tied for second place? I have it down here somewhere. They are currently 15 and 9, tied with Cloud9, down 1 game from LMQ. So they're in a good spot overall to make moves into Worlds. But my problem is that TSM right now is way too beatable and predictable. You have 2 basic goals when playing TSM. Defeat Bjergsen, either by banning him out or creating so much pressure mid in the early game to completely screw him up and keep him from getting super fed. Hint, don't give him Syndra for any reason, CLG. What were you thinking? And then be able to control objectives and decisively push the game by just taking tower after tower and keeping them on the toes. So right now, Bjergsen is their shot caller, and being such a temperamental player in the sense that when he's really hot, and when he's not at all, he sucks. I think you take advantage of that communication problem that he's going to have, where he's flustered in mid, he's trying to get CS, he's trying to get kills, he's falling behind. Oh shit, they took Dragon. Oh shit, they took top. Fuck, Dyrus just died. I think that's how TSM as a team devolves right now. And the other problem with their team, with the Glebe support role, was that Wild Turtle, in terms of individual skill, he won't really propel himself over any particular bottom lane. But if you can get him at least safe for a while, he's going to become a ticking time bomb. Or if you can get him kills, he'll get to that point. You got to get him a few items. You got to get him strong communication, and you're there. And with Glebe, that was a big question mark. Can he do it? Can he not? Is he going to get caught out a bunch of times?
Usually the answer to that question would be yes.
Yes, and it was. And I think with Lustboy, you're a little bit more confident. You have the opportunity. Again, I mean, the game against Evil Geniuses was kind of just like, hey, let's do the craziest trick plays in the world and then beat EG in every team fight we have. And then the game with CLG just didn't even really involve Lustboy, other than just kind of, hey, follow us around and kind of be like a weird supporty jungle. I hate the lane or the jungle buddy strategy. It's the worst.
Yeah, me too. It's not fun to watch, and tactically I get it, but it's even less entertaining than watching a 2v1 than lane.
Yeah. For me, okay, so the CLG versus TSM game, CLG it seems like they had a really tough pick ban because they didn't know what to give Seraph. So to recap, Dyrus ends up playing Aurelia, Seraph ends up playing Shyvana, and Shyvana is bad right now. In the world of Nidalee, Lulu, Gragas, Ryze, and Aurelia as competitive top laners, Shyvana is not very good, and I'm hoping that TSM's plan going into this was to ban out Seraph, and I know it seems odd to ban out the weakest player on the team, but when Seraph does so little already, putting him on a champion that doesn't contribute until late game, and even if it could contribute would get shut down by a Kog'Maw pick, it's pretty strong for them.
Yeah.
That being said, the early game CLG played really well. They noticed, like, if you look at Tsm's team comp, their only wave clear is like Kog'Maw E, I guess, and then Syndra Kid is good for clearing waves. But other than that, they have no way to clear waves. And they're playing against a team that has immense amounts of wave clear and immense amount of pushing potential. And so you saw CLG push out like tier 2s on both top and bottom, and like in theory would be able to snowball this lead. But then they just started throwing team fight after team fight, and people getting caught, and Seraph blowing a flash, and like these little mistakes added up to the point where and then added into this like these free kills when TSM finally started grouping together and pushing down mid lane and poking them out. So TSM played really, really well.
Yeah.
And I think CLG is just dropping the ball because they had the potential to win the game and they just kind of threw it away, it feels like.
I almost want to say that if they had somehow prevented Bjergsen from getting Syndra, that maybe they might not have won that game, but it would have been a much different game.
I don't think it's Syndra. I think Xerath. Okay. I think any bursty AP mage. Like he was so far ahead at that point that it didn't matter. He could have one-shotted anybody on that team just about. I mean, obviously Syndra's very powerful, but putting 5 people in a bush to kill Xerath.
Well, that's different though, because and this is kind of moving into the CLG discussion. But at that point, Bjergsen already got a kind of long range, I think almost as max range as you could, destruction on Aphromoo, who has a spell shield and who used it, but all that burst damage was just able to take him out. Then they were able to follow up and get him a double kill on Double Lift, kind of funny, right afterwards. And from there, it just kind of kept rolling. Dyrus, and this is the one thing that bothers me about Dyrus, but makes me love Dyrus at the same time. Mostly bothers me right now. Dyrus was in his own world this game. You saw him get a snag on Double Lift amidst like almost all of CLG that resulted in TSM being able to take Baron super early. I think that was even under 20 minutes at that point. And then he just had this ridiculous just chase around, being able to keep CLG bottom while TSM moved in, and I think they took a couple objectives based off that. But it was, second tier, mid turret, a kill, and then shifted up to top, then dragon, then bottom base, and bottom inhibitor. It just very quickly spun out of control for CLG. But in the post game, Darius is like, yeah, I didn't really know what everyone else is doing when that happened. I was just like, I'm really tanky, and I'm not going to get killed. And then I decided to chase them because I'm really tanky and I'm not going to get killed. And I didn't even know what my team was doing.
I think Dyrus is not a very good public speaker. I think you misinterpret what he's saying. What I think he's saying, at least how I'm interpreting Dyrus. It's sad that this has to happen, but how I'm interpreting what Dyrus means is I'm going to chase these guys because I know they can't kill me. I know I can get away, but if I don't chase them, they get to be for free. So I don't know what my team is doing right now, but they all know that I'm bot with 3 people, and so I assume they're getting something. I think what he's saying is he was tunneled on bot, and then he knew his team was doing something productive, but he didn't know specifically what. That's what I'm hoping.
And what I think is he's been doing this long enough and doing enough interviews for the LCS that probably getting tongue-tied is not Dyrus's problem.
No, and I knew that was obviously the strategy. So he chases them down, he continues to chase, and he hopes that the rest of their team is out there doing something productive, which they were. They gathered up mid, that turned into some kills, and I think, we already went over that. But the fact that isn't being called, to me, is still kind of a problem, because the best execution for TSM possible right now is for everybody to be on the same page. And they've got a problem with the fact that Lusboy is Korean and, as far as I know, speaks mostly Korean. I know he does speak a good bit of English, and communication is something that they have on their sites right now. And I think they have plenty of time to focus in on that. But it's going to be too easy for them to get messed up, locked down, in trouble against top-tier teams going into playoffs and going into Worlds, if that's where they go. That kind of, I'm going to do my job and hope that it works out strategy might not work as effectively. I think they had 2 really good games. They have a new player. They had 2 good games with a player. When that player wasn't a standpoint, a big focal point for the match, I'd be interested to see how they do in a bad game with Lusboy, what he ends up pulling out. And we've lost Dan. Maybe.
No, I'm still here. My camera's just bugged on stream, so I was trying to turn it off and on again. You're fine.
Dan's still with us. Kind of funny, towards the end of that CLG game, and I think it was actually kind of a little bit afterwards, Reginald tweeted out he took a picture of selfie. He took a selfie with Double Lift, and he was holding up a box that had a piece of paper taped onto it that said trash. So thou art mortal, and I won't put the rest of that on TSM, because the last bit of takeaway I got from Dyrus is they, in the post-game interview with Cloud9 after their victory against who did they just walk over? Oh, LMQ. The casters asked, what's your priority? And Cloud9 appropriately responded, we don't really care about what's coming up going forward. We just want to win games and be happy with the way we won them. So,
and there's a nice transition. They have a lot of reasons to be happy about the way they won that game.
Yes. Just to wrap up, Dyrus responded on their end with TSM that Reginald's idea is to go to Worlds. And that's more or less how he put it. And that tells me everything I need to know about TSM right now, which is they have their heads in the right place. Sure, Worlds is always the goal. We definitely don't want to lose coming up. That makes sense. But I think and hope that they've got their priorities in the right place, integrating Lusboy, working on their communication, and getting ready for a much better spring split. I'm not ready to become a TSM fanboy again, but it makes me happy to know that they're working on the right things, because I think that's when you're going to see awesome play from them, and it won't happen in any other way.
Yeah. I think short-term thinking is always better in a competitive split. I like Cloud9's attitude more. Not worried about Worlds, just worried about winning the games in front of them, especially when they've been performing poorly. I think TSM should probably maintain the same attitude with Lustboy. I think putting on a new player, the issue is if you don't look farther ahead than the next couple of games, you may never fix your communication issues. Those things may never improve.
Right.
But if you focus on the immediate future, you're much more likely to win those games if you focus on just those games. Because focusing on Worlds is such a gamble when you haven't in the past been consistently winning games. Just because if you don't make it to Worlds, all that prep is wasted.
Right.
Yeah, plus as a side effect, if you do focus on the games in front of you and focus on winning them and you execute that strategy, you probably will get to Worlds. So, yeah, it kind of works out. I like Cloud9's approach a bit better, too. Focus on the immediate. Forget about Worlds for a second. Focus on winning the North American Championship. How about that for a mini goal?
So, speaking of Cloud9, I unfortunately didn't get to watch this afternoon's games except for I sat down on my couch. I was in Maine all weekend. I sat down on my couch and turned on my Chromecast, and CLG TSM was just starting, and I couldn't have been happier. But I missed apparently an awesome Cloud9 game against LMQ, where LMQ didn't get any kills, and for some reason, Lemonation has a needlessly large rod in his inventory.
Yeah, he killed Rengar like 4 times in a row and was like, I'm killing Rengar a whole bunch. Why don't I get more damage? Because he was getting bullied pretty hard early on by No Name. And after a while, I can't explain exactly how it got started, but he just all of a sudden started picking up kills on him specifically.
And Elise. You're thinking of Elise.
Am I Elise?
Yeah.
Rengar might be the other game. Yeah.
Yeah, Rengar. You're thinking versus Dig, but yeah,
I'm thinking versus Dig.
Yeah, the thing
that
about
was a pretty good game too. Both the Cloud9's games are extremely entertaining this week for different reasons.
Yeah, and
I don't know how to chalk up a win against Complexity. Sorry, that wasn't their first game. It was against Dig. I apologize. Yeah, those are 2 big games.
It was rough against Dig. They played a little rough, a little sloppy early on. Apparently, there was a invisible dragon bug that sort of threw their game off a little bit at some point. I don't know where exactly, but it was rough. We did get treated to a pretty awesome smite steal. And then just a really amazing play by Balls on his Mundo, screening out the entirety of Dig so that Cloud9 could take Baron. They took Baron and just turned that into so many objectives. They completely swung the gold lead, and they just executed the end of the game from there.
I wonder how at this point, because I truly believe, especially with kind of this attitude they have, their most recent success, some of those key players making really big plays, I think Cloud9 is definitely on the way to Worlds. Almost no question.
They're on the right trajectory. Unlike CLG, they're getting better as it's going on instead of getting worse.
Yeah.
My concern is what will a potential loss at Worlds do to them at this kind of weird, fragile state?
I don't think it would phase them. I don't think a loss at Worlds is going to phase any of these teams, to be honest with you, because North America is going in there with nothing to lose and everything to prove. You know what I mean? We've never won, so
Riot
losing is not strange.
Full group stage, so we have good group stage matches to watch, and I think group stage is, if a team gets knocked out during group stage, it's tough, but it's spread out over multiple losses, so it's not the end of the world. And I think that it's not like they come in, they have to beat one team, they know what one team they're facing. That's it. They prep for this match. Everything's riding on this. They lose. It all falls apart. Like, there's a lot of games to lose. There's good reasons and bad reasons to lose games. And I think that coming into Worlds, you just have to keep your eye on winning. You have to hope for the win, but I don't think you can let the loss get to you, because at the end of the day, you're still coming back to another split in North America. And I think that, losing at Worlds is hopefully what they will get out of this NA. If we do just lose out, is that we will get to scrim excellent Korean teams. We will get to learn new strategies, new coaching strategies, and we'll just take it all back to NA and make the next split that much better.
So we'll I want to talk about one more thing before we move on to CLG and then on to Super Week. And it's actually pulling the pin out of the discussion we had earlier towards the end of Europe, where we were talking about feeling particularly loyal to one team versus another in a particular split in a particular region. How do you guys feel about LMQ being a Chinese team coming in and representing North America if they're successful? So, nice.
I think
we can't see what just happened on screen because your thing is just a black splitting, but I can only imagine that was like a thing of mustard or a nasty, juicy fart.
Yeah, I went more with the second one there.
Yeah.
Or a chair. But
Or a
yeah,
chair.
or
Yes.
a chair.
Or the chair.
Thank you for jumping to the worst possible conclusion. But yeah. All right.
So
Gassy
LMQ,
chair farts
yes.
aside.
LMQ. I think LMQ coming in, if for like whatever reason they went to Worlds and completely dominated and they won, I wouldn't feel like it was a North American victory. But I have no problem with them being in the North American LCS. If anything, it gives North America a good villain. Like, they're the outsiders. They're also a really powerful team. They come in here. They give all the other teams something to fight for. So I love the dynamic they bring. I love the level of competition, having international teams come in every once in a while and sort of increase the talent pool in the continent. But at the same time, I don't want them winning the North American Championship, and I, no offense to them, would hate it if they actually won Worlds in our name. It wouldn't feel quite right.
See, I feel like, first of all, I support them. If they go to Worlds, it is a North American victory. I'll celebrate it as a North American victory. But I feel like the League of Legends international esports community as a whole won't ever consider it a real North American victory, which is unfortunate because when you look at professional sports, hockey, baseball, anything, international people, and by that I mean people from not North America originally, come in all the time.
But that's individuals, not entire organizations.
Well, even if an entire organization. So the thing that well, first off, I would totally support if LMQ won, but I also just don't care that it's NA winning. Like going back to this, the only reason NA as a region is relevant is it means that they won practicing against other NA teams and prepping versus other NA teams. Like, that's all it means to be in North America, is that your practice pool is limited to North American teams. Your player base can be from anywhere. Like, the best teams in North America have players from, like, let's say TSM goes, they're one of the best teams. Half their roster is European and they have a Korean player now? Like, 2 NA players? 3 NA players? 2 NA players? Mm-hmm. 2 NA players. Yeah, Dyrus and Turtle. And, like, so CLG goes, we have Dexter, and we have Seraph. I mean, like, realistically, I don't think you can, even if a whole organization comes in, I don't think you can chalk it up to nationality. What I want to see is international competition, much more international competition, because I think that stifling League of Legends competition by forcing it into, like, the structures of the respective LCSs is really good for Korea, because Korea is playing against the best teams all the time, and it helps all the Koreans stay on the top because they're just constantly on the forefront of developing just about everything as far as League of Legends goes. But for every other region, we're just trailing behind. I mean,
I completely disagree. I think it's made the international competitions more special by giving something to contrast them to. I think it's great that each region is developing its own style and meta, its own superstars, people that can actually make an emotional connection with the audience because they see them playing all the time, or maybe they're from where they're from. And because it's a regular, scheduled kind of thing, it's something you can track and follow and, like, for instance, do fantasy with if you're into that. Or just watch your favorite team and see how their record is compared to other teams. If everything's international and there's all these one-off international tournaments, you don't really have that. It's just a mishmash. Oh, this person won DreamHack, and this person won Katowice, and this one, and this one, and this one. But who's really on top? You never say. Where do these teams stack compared to one another? The casual fan can't really find out. You know?
I love that. That was the best. Actually, that's probably my biggest. You just elaborated on my biggest frustration with how esports used to be, where it's like, oh, there's a tournament going on and this team's in it, but these teams aren't, and this team won, but then they suck over here. Like that whole confusion. And as much as I think a lot of people kind of hated the compressing of esports into this one regulated LCS system, I think it did a lot more for the consistency of it for the individual user and the ability to track it and the quality standards. But Dan, how much is shit going to be flipped if a European team or a North American team can kick the shit out of a North Korean team? North Korean team. Wow.
It might happen.
They don't have any of those. North Korean, out of a Korean team. It might happen, but what's going to happen to that perception? My perception right now, where it's like, great, you got to Worlds. Good job, LMQ. Now go lose to the Koreans. Bye. Like, come back in one piece, please. What happens when we do start winning? Do you take them down a notch? Do all of a sudden it's like, wow, we really got to start, like, this is a real thing now? I would say, go ahead.
I will take NA 100% seriously as a region when we develop our own meta. Because if you say we have our own meta, you are completely wrong. You are completely wrong. Not one individualized pick has come out of North America. Europe's only individualized pick is Aatrox, and I guarantee if they take it to an international competitive level, it will suck. It will suck. China has a unique meta completely because they are based entirely in early game aggression. And that same thing will lose to Korea. China has a great meta. I love China's unique meta, but EU and NA do not have unique metas.
I can't tell if you're upset because your camera's down.
I'm not upset. I'm just passionate about the subject. Like, Monte Cristo, who's great, who's a great influence on North American law, pulls everything from Korea. Like, everything from Korea. Loco Doco pulls everything from Korea. Last Shadow, the coach for Super Hot Crew, pulls everything from Korea. Leviathan, the coach for Alliance, I don't know where he pulls from. I'm hoping that he has inspiration outside of Korea. He has some interesting comps with the Xerath Corki. We talked about it last week. That's great. I love it. But that was like the most unique thing I've seen come out of EU, aside from the Aatrox and Yorick picks. And God forbid anyone picks Yorick on an international competitive scene. So it's just,
here's the thing, Dan. Pull everything from Korea. Even if we watched the Korean teams over here, if that's all it was, I probably wouldn't care. The reason why I watch LCS every week is because there are players and teams that I follow. And I want to see how they're doing. I want to watch those games. I don't want to watch two generic best teams in League of Legends play games over and over. I would rather play the actual game. I want to follow specific people and teams that I care about. And if I did watch Korean games all the time, maybe I would care more about them than the handful that I'm aware of and care about. I would care very much more about guys like Turtle, Reckless. You know, these are the people that I identify with, and I go, yeah, I want to see this player win because I've been following them throughout the year, and if they win, it will mean something to me.
To Dan's point, it is, I suppose, slightly frustrating that we do have to kind of watch the two most present, at least in the context of this podcast, the two most present regions kind of stew in their own shit a little bit in order to be successful and not be able to be innovative, because their number one concern is just getting through their split. But this, I think, is a discussion much better for post-playa or post-Worlds, when we kind of see how things go. We have all 5 people, and we have no LCS going. So we'll put a little pin in that one as well. And we'll Just to
close out, I don't disagree with the structure currently. I think the structure currently is excellent from a marketing standpoint. It's excellent from like getting people in North America excited about League of Legends. What I'm saying is, from a competitive standpoint, if you want to improve the quality of League of Legends games, if you want to improve the quality of competitive League of Legends as a scene, maybe the first step is to keep, the LCS how it is from a viewer standpoint. But I'm saying, as far as game quality and skill level goes, it's international. It's all about being international. It's not about localized tournaments.
But I have no reason to care about. What I'm saying is, I have no reason to care about the theoretical skill level of these players. I don't.
No,
care.
and I understand that.
No
I'm
one
not-
else
I'm not
listening should
disagreeing.
have a reason to care.
Yeah, but I want to see good games. I appreciate I appreciate Korean games because they are so good and because teams play in ways that are interesting and are new and fresh. And when I watch Korean games and then I immediately the next week go and watch North American games, all I see is mediocre Korean games. That's what I see.
Speaking of mediocre Korean games, let's talk
Super
about Super
Week.
Week.
Yeah, boy. Stay
That horn is the best
blazed.
segue ever.
Where
All
did
right.
you
I'm gonna
get
get one
that,
to
and how
cut
do
you
I
off
get
whenever
one?
you want to talk about TSM too
I
much.
have to.
Yes, boy!
Yeah, I think there was like a little bit where the T-Force proper experimented with soundboards, and it was just the worst thing for the show ever. But
Well, you should have it play through your computer, not through whatever that is.
I wasn't prepared for
What
that.
is that? Is that your phone?
It is my phone. It is the InstaRap horn app. And you can get a nice air horn going.
We did. We talked about this the other week. How we just want the really bad rap horns.
Exactly.
You got one.
And that's what I
Well
got.
done, sir. Well done.
So let's
We
talk.
still need our remix theme of that. People that are listening out there, we need the theme song for the show to have a nothing but air horns remix, like a true boss.
well,
Just
what
Les
I
Boy and air
what,
horn. That's all
what I
want
want to know, is if we're gonna get the new T-Force, theme song. If you guys listen to the T-Force proper, I think they do Mondays and Wednesdays. Yeah, they have a new theme song, so go listen to that. But Super Week, as we dwindle down in time here, Europe, kind of disappointing in the sense that even if the Copenhagen Wolves, who is currently 7th, win all of their games against Fnatic, Roccat, and Super Hot Crew, aka not happening, they still won't even be able to get out of relegation. So Copenhagen Wolves and Gambit will be relegated into oblivion. There may actually have to be a tiebreaker, as Gambit is playing against Alliance, Millennium, and somebody that I don't quite know. You're playing it the exact opposite direction, Greg, of where you need to be playing that thing.
Nope.
Nope. But and what really the story will be is who is going to get pushed into that 7th place, or that 6th place loss in playoffs, and get pushed down into relegation. So right now, between Alliance and Fnatic, Super Hot Crew, Millennium, and SK and Roccat kind of being grouped in their own little tiers there, it really seems like, unless Millennium kind of decide to start sucking like they did in the beginning of the split, or Super Hot Crew have a really bad week, it's seeming like it's going to be SK and Roccat that are going to be kind of on the hot seat for that extra relegation spot.
Yeah, I don't think there's any chance of there being anything else. I think, yeah, that's almost. I would bet. I'd bet sizable amounts of money that those two are going to play for the for 6th place, because SK is not stepping up their game. Not really. I mean, I don't think their performance this week was that stellar, and I think that no matter how many games they win against Copenhagen Wolves or Gambit, they're still not going to beat the top teams, and so it's almost guaranteed they're going to be those guys playing off against each other.
Yeah. The only other real story we have going on is who's going to actually take the split championship. Is Fnatic going to be able to rally and, as always, continue their winning streak in the championship series and win again, or will Alliance finally cut their ties and be able to take that out? So that'll be interesting. Those are your teams to watch for next week. Alliance has games against Gambit, SK, and Millennium. Fnatic has games against Copenhagen Wolves, Super Hot Crew, and Roccat. So it's surprisingly very even in terms of wins and losses potential.
And I would say that more importantly than watching those two, since those two are almost guaranteed, I would say Super Hot Crew and Millennium are the two that you should keep your eye on, just because they actually, if whichever one of those teams gets into 3rd place, it's really important, I think, to be in 3rd.
Yeah. What do we know about playoff structure at this point, for sure?
I assume
It will happen.
Okay, so we know. So playoff/relegation is 5th, 6th play each other to see who gets relegated, and then first and second both get a bye, and then I think it's first, second both get a bye. No, I don't even remember how playoff structure works. It's been so long. Yeah, I have no idea.
We'll review that. We'll review that after. We'll review that after the end of the next episode. We should know the playoff tier by then. At least be able to infer it as best as possible. So we'll put together. We'll get a little gambling pool going on. We'll start striking those up. But sorry, Copenhagen Wolves and Gambit, you're gonna have Challenger Series. We'll also probably want to do a Challenger Series review in some future episode as well. Moving over to the North American side, a lot more interesting, but equally is kind of futile, unfortunately. EG has 0 chance of making it out of the muck. That's a lie. If Curse, so here's the bottom tier working up. EG currently sits at 7 wins, Complexity at 8, Curse at 10. So if EG wins all of their games and Curse loses all of theirs, it goes into a tiebreaker, at which point...
No. There's definitely not a tiebreaker. It bases on their win percentages against each other.
And I think at that point, it's definitely going to be probably Curse taking the win there.
And I still think that...
Without actually knowing, but that's my best guess. Complexity, though, does have a pretty good chance. They're at 8 wins. They could possibly move above Curse with Curse losing all of their games. Curse does play LMQ, Dignitas, and Complexity. So that LMQ game is going to be tough for them. But the kind of theme of Curse this year is tough but not impossible, because they have been able to peel a lot of wins off a lot of teams they probably shouldn't have. Dignitas...
when they play
I'm sorry?
When they play well, they play really well. When they play poorly, they just throw it all away.
Sure. So
they're this season's coast.
Right. Hopefully X-Specials... Actually, what am I saying? Fuck Curse. Hopefully they lose. Complexity has a chance to move up, but realistically, it's not that great. They do have to play Curse, they do have to play Cloud9, and they do have to play CLG. So, excuse me, I'm almost willing to say that EG and Complexity will go ahead and probably be relegated, and I don't think Curse is that far behind them. The interesting story right now is who will go to Worlds, because up until the past couple of weeks, it really did look like CLG and Dignitas were going to have a strong fighting chance. But unfortunately, CLG's over-aggression when they're down. We saw this personified the week before with just Link's crazy all-in dives that just ended up him dying and then just getting rolled over. And a lot of their play in their game against TSM today was like, oh, well, if we run up with all 4 mid down, they won't possibly be in a bush. Can't happen. And then getting caught out. It's just aggressively sloppy play, which is unfortunate for them. But LMQ, currently sitting on top, 16-8, has got a pretty interesting week playing against TSM, Curse, and Dignitas. TSM, though, they have the ringer. This is what's going to make or break TSM in terms of positioning. And I think their momentum off this week is either going to put them in a great position for playoffs, or kind of put some kinks in their armor. They're going up against LMQ, Cloud9, and Dignitas. So save CLG, who they managed to stomp today, they've got the rest of the top.
And I expect they'll probably pick about 2 out of those 3 off.
I don't know. I think LMQ's been underperforming, and they are having huge organizational issues. For those of you who don't know, their manager was just let go, and their coach is concerned for his job, and there's just a whole bunch of legal stuff going on back in the back end LMQ. I'm sure it's on Reddit. If not, you can look up her Twitter. I think it's LMQ Sharon, and she talks about it a little bit. But basically, it's that aside, and there was probably a few pages back on Reddit. It got busted a couple days ago. LMQ issues aside, so if LMQ steps their game up, I expect that TSM will lose to LMQ, but they've been performing pretty poorly. Dignitas is also kind of hit or miss right now. And C9 and TSM, since they're both coming off of these excellent weeks, I think it's just about whoever can keep a level head. Whoever doesn't let it get to them that we're winning now. Like, we can get to the top. Whoever just thinks, all right, we won those 2 games. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Like, don't worry about anything else. That's the team that's going to make it to the top of the standings.
And I really hope that Cloud9 is able to pull themselves back up, because I think that's going to earn them a lot of respect going into Worlds. I feel like Cloud9 is just a team right now that can really do no wrong to fans. If they're underperforming, people aren't going to go out and say, oh, this person sucks, that person sucks. Everybody just kind of understands, sure, you guys had a pretty bad problem with High. Now you're kind of back. Now you're doing great. We love you guys again. Let's just keep playing.
Yeah, I will.
That said,
take it back.
They're the Captain America of.
I'm
complexity
attached.
is there.
I'm attached to Cloud9. I'm going to say it. I actually, thinking about it, they're the only team that has stuck together for this long. I feel like without any roster swaps, probably almost guaranteedly. And like they straight stomped 2 splits, and everybody kind of hated them a little bit. Or from my experience, because I've always been a CLG fan, so you just watch these guys just steamroll CLG every week.
It was pretty awesome. Sorry,
but now they're struggling, and they're struggling to keep that spot. And now it's not just like they're not just unbeatable, and they're human, and you see them struggle, and you see in the interviews they talk about how like High's lung collapsing has affected them. And yeah, I'm a C9 fan, and it's awesome.
It's a story. It's a story you can get behind. They came in and they were like dominant, and they could really do no wrong, and like there wasn't any one particular player that you could really get overly attached to and then disappointed in if they underperformed. It was kind of just like this whole team effort, and that's how they were. And it was great, and then they weren't, but now they are again, and we love them for it. I'll buy some Cloud9 gear this weekend, I think. That'll be what I do.
It's an exciting time. I fear for... I know they broke the complexity curse, but I do see it on the schedule again. Oh, boy.
Well, we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
We'll see. I don't think it's going to affect them that much. I think they'll be able to just dust off that loss. That's going to be big for Complexity, because then they only have to worry about CLG. And I think Complexity has the ability to potentially pull off an upset and maybe bash down Curse a little bit. But that'll be interesting. That'll be interesting to see.
I'm going to laugh when Complexity's like blue shell skills pull through for them when they're in 5th or 6th place and they're playing in the 5th, 6th spot. CU gets relegated and they beat out like Dignitas or CLG or DSM or whoever gets knocked down there.
That could be a huge point. That might happen. That's the funny thing.
See, if Complexity manages to beat Cloud9, I only hope that they also manage to beat CLG. It has to be. Oh. Like, I would hate to see Complexity beat Cloud9 and put CLG over. That would break my heart.
If CLG doesn't step up their game, they deserve to lose to Complexity. So I hope that they win too, but
it's true.
Yeah, if they don't figure their shit out quick, then yeah, they deserve to lose to Complexity. So
well, the real drama, the real big story that's going on with this upcoming Super Week is what's going to happen in the T-Force Fantasy League. Networt is not me missaying it. It is Adam Ponophobia Cogswell misspelling it.
Of the T-Force proper.
Of the T-Force proper.
At GGC Ponophobia on Twitter. In case you guys want to let him know that his spelling is full.
Don't give him free Twitter.
Well, the problem is he's got enough already, Greg.
I know.
The problem is right now is that as the standings currently go, and so we have 2 things going on. We have the individuals bracket, which is the 8 players, 4 from T-Force proper, 4 from T-Force LCS Rundown. There's that going on, the individuals playing. From our show, we still have Wrecker representing us because Greg couldn't get in. And it's myself, Optimus Tom, Mitch, and Wrecker versus essentially Adam, Chira, Dom, and DeClaude. But there's also the kind of pooled records. So of the total points, who has the more points overall? Is it the T-Force LCS Rundown or is it the T-Force proper? It'll be very exciting to see come the end of the week. But the best part is, first of all, I had a great week in my fantasy with Bjergsen, Selfie, Mr. Rawls, and Amazing
Phrasing.
on my team. Right? That was a great week for me. But right now, so going into next week, the standings currently have Adam at 7-2, me tied with Tom and Chira at 6-3, and then the rest follow suit. But next week, for Super Week, Tom and Adam square off, and I go up against Wrecker, who I'm pretty sure doesn't even change his roster anymore, so he usually ends up going pretty low.
So what you're saying is it's like Fnatic versus Alliance, and then you're like Super Hot Crew battling against Gambit next week? That's what it sounds like to me.
Well, what will happen is if Optimus Tom manages to beat Adam, which so the total estimated points for me has me beating Wrecker, and if Tom can beat Adam, there will be a 3-way tie if I have my numbers right here. Let me check that. So that will put Adam at 7-3, me at 7-3, and Optimus Tom at 7-3. And that will be fucking epic, because I think at that point it comes down to total points, and I'm pretty sure Optimus Tom is still going to win because he's pretty much Alliance encapsulated in a fantasy league, and we'll see how that actually ends up breaking down. But it's super exciting. We haven't talked about it recently, but I figured I'd give everybody an update. I'm pretty sure overall we're going to end up winning. The T-Force LCS Rundown will win in the overall bracket, but at least we're also rocking the individuals as well. But with that, that's it. Potentially next week, like I said, we'll be coming in at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. For those of you out in podcast land, join us 8 p.m. twitch.tv/tforcepodcast or trinityforcepodcast.com. And also, super cool and new, I purchased lcsrundown.com as well. I don't think it's hooked up yet to our site, but you'll also be able to go there and just find that. So that's pretty sweet. So from everybody at the T-Force LCS crew, thank you for joining us again for another episode. This has been Motganorum signing off with Greg Credible Mushroom Russo.
Take it easy, guys.
And Dan Sifa Dracos.
Thank you for putting up with my frozen webcam and that disparaging look I've been giving you all for the entire podcast.
I'll
for those
assume you're
watching
just...
live.
Oh, ooh, that's the worst.
That's bad.
That's
That's
really
awful.
bad. That's the worst.
That's getting uninstalled.
Ugh. Yeah, I'll text you that. And sorry for the people who... There you go.
Much better.
For the people who are in the Twitch chat, sorry for the kind of busted stream. I don't have Photoshop. I can't change the background. And we were expecting 4 this episode, not 3. So bear with us while we work through these weird, like, slow internet things and messy backgrounds, but we'll get there eventually. See, we're back to old T-Force LCS Rundown form, which neither of you were around for, but when my computer would be fucked up every single time, and we'd always have technical issues. See, it all comes